It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the 55th annual meeting of Save the Bay. And it is my privilege as president of the board of Save the Bay to call this meeting to order officially with a gavel, and I will do that.
Isn't that fun?
We are now called to order. I'm going to try to move this along quickly. My sole job here actually is to move along these presentations so you can hear from others. But I'm the type of person who can't help myself but to say a few remarks. My name is George Schuster. I am the president of the Save the Bay board. This is the end of my first full year in that role. I've been on the board for about a decade, and I just wanted to say at the outset 3 things that struck me in my first year as president of the Save the Bay board that I had maybe known before but not focused on as much as I had in the past. The first is the extent to which Save the Bay is an organization that really gets its hands dirty. And by that I mean, a lot of times we think about Save the Bay as a policy organization, an advocacy organization, the organization that goes to Smith Hill and fights for better legislation to protect the Bay. And we do that, and we do that very well, and that is in some ways our marquee role. But we are every single day of the year out there in the field restoring salt marshes, mitigating coastal erosion, picking up shoreline trash. We're out there all the time educating tens of thousands of students in Rhode Island, in their classrooms, on the beaches, on our boats. This is an organization that is really out there performing a critical mission beyond the setting of the policy. It's doing the day-to-day work of protecting the Bay. And that has become more apparent to me in the last year than ever. The second thing I would note is that Save the Bay has really grown a lot in the time that I've been involved in the organization, and most recently, just in the past few years. We have added our capacity in all of those habitat restoration areas, in our education areas, in our advocacy areas. We are a much bigger, stronger organization today than we were even a few years ago. And with that, we have had to grow financially as well. And through the help of everyone in this room and many others, we've been able to finance our growth through a greater donation base that is both broad and deep. And we're very thankful for that. The third thing I'd note is something of a pivot. I feel like Save the Bay today is looking more and more into the future, more and more prospectively, to figure out what Narragansett Bay needs years out and decades out, what type of bay we all collectively want to see 10, 25, 50 years from now, and trying to protect that Narragansett Bay, that vision of Narragansett Bay. And so I would leave you with the thought that in order to do that job well, we really need all of your help to give us input on what you want Narragansett Bay to be like now and for generations to come, so that we can properly target our mission to that Narragansett Bay. And there are complex questions. There are complicated issues and compromises that'll have to be reached. And we want to work with all of you and with people outside this room to figure out that vision and to be targeting the organization towards it. And so with those initial thoughts, I am now happy to turn the podium over to our treasurer and finance committee chairman, Bud Cummings, to give the treasurer's report.
Thank you, George. The Finance Committee of Save the Bay is charged with overseeing the financial health of the organization and in providing guidance to the board and management to ensure that both the current and long-term financial health of the entity remains strong. This is not done in a vacuum, as other board committees also play a critical role in providing their own expertise and guidance that allows the organization to remain financially sound and able to function through difficult economic times. While fiscal year 24 brought us another year of strong financial performance, we never lose sight of the fact that things could quickly change, and we believe that we are as prepared for these days as we possibly can be. I'm pleased to report that Save the Bay finished fiscal year 24 in solid financial position, thanks in part to the collective efforts of these committees and a solid management team that does not look to spend indiscriminately when times are good, and has the experience and know-how to get through the not-so-good. After the conclusion of a successful fundraising campaign in concert with the 50th anniversary of the organization, management took the weekend off and then went back to work soliciting funds to build our new aquarium in the heart of downtown Newport. I'm happy to report that 100% of the funds were raised to complete the project, and the balance sheet again this year reflects $0 in long-term debt. A remarkable testament to the many supporters of the organization and to the dedication of the development and management team. We do have a diversified revenue stream that is not overly reliant on any one funding source. When you look at total revenue for the year, 41% came from contributions, 6% from volunteer efforts, 20% from non-government grants, 10% from government grants, 14% from our various programs, be it education, the aquarium, whatever, and 9% from other incomes such as rentals of this room, joint ventures, special events, and the like. How we spend these monies is a clear indicator of how we stay true to our mission. 21.3% were spent on policy and habitat restoration, 51.3% on education, 6.9% on communications, 17.7% on fundraising, and only 2.8% on administrative expenses. As noted in the annual report, we ended the year with $4 million in cash and investments, representing almost a full year of operating expenses for that period. This leaves us in good shape to handle any headwinds that may impact our finances in the short term. Our endowment ended the year at $2,925,000, up 13.6% for the year. When I took on the job as treasurer, I started to give these annual reports. I started each year to note an asset of the organization that never appears on the balance sheet. And this year, I noted that 6% of our total revenue comes from volunteer hours, which represents 25,754 hours for the year. That is the equivalent of one person working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks of the year, putting in over 12 years of work. And I told Juan, our communications director, earlier that the last issue of Tides, talking about volunteers, he clearly was hacking into my computer to talk about that because I had already written this and this was in my speech. From shoreline cleanups to storm drain marking, restoration efforts, assisting at the aquarium or the swim, we are reliant on our volunteers and they do not disappoint. But we know that to keep them coming back, we must be organized and prepared for them, because a bad experience will drive people away. At Save the Bay, we are fortunate to have a volunteer coordinator who made a very big mistake tonight of sitting in the front row, so she cannot escape. July is always prepared, brings a smile to work every single day. I'm not 100% sure that she knows the cell phone number of every volunteer that has walked through these doors, but I wouldn't bet against it. Through her efforts and that of her team, when the volunteers show up, they're assigned to Wenley, to Adam, to Juan, to Bridget. They are prepared, they're put to work, and they do not have a bad experience, and they keep on coming back. We are fortunate to have her along with all of the volunteers that we have, and we hope you keep on coming. Good job, July. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud. I'm next going to introduce Tim Palmer. Tim used to be the chair of our nominating and governance committee, but Tim is a man of few words. He always gets to the point, and so one of his greatest achievements in that role has been to change the name of the committee from the nominating and governance committee to the governance committee. Notwithstanding that, Tim's job tonight is to come up and do some nominating work. So Tim, why don't you come forward and do that?
You may be wondering what else we do if that's one of my greatest achievements. I am pleased to present the following proposed slate of board members for a 3-year term beginning July 1, 2025, and would ask each person to stand when their name is announced and remain standing for the vote. Bud Cummings, Kathy Lanphier, Tim Palmer, Harry Potter. Is Harry here? Ben Singer, is Ben here? Is there a motion from the floor to accept the proposed slate of directors for 3-year terms beginning on July 1 of this year?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The slate is approved. Thank you all. We do have one retiring board member who I'd like to acknowledge, Sam Slade. Sam has been a member of the board since 2017, serving on the Finance Committee, Development Committee, Executive Director Search Committee, and he is the outgoing chair of the Compensation and Benefits Committee. Sam, who I don't think is here, we want to acknowledge our thanks to him for his wise counsel, his leadership, and his commitment to Narragansett Bay and Save the Bay. Lastly, I want to thank all board, committee, President's Leadership Council members, and trustees, and all of our members who don't fit in any of those categories for their ongoing service, commitment, and support of Save the Bay.
The next portion of this meeting, which is a portion I especially enjoy, is the presentation of Save the Bay's annual awards. One note as we do this, we're going to have each of the members of the Save the Bay staff responsible for each of the respective awards come forward and give those presentations. We will present the awards here. We will not pause for pictures and such while we give the awards now, because we'll do that at the end with all the award winners coming back up to the front of the room for that purpose. And with that, I'll introduce our Executive Director, Topher Hamblett, to present the Allison Walsh Award for Outstanding Environmental Advocacy.
Hi, everyone. Years ago, we had a staffer here named Allison Walsh, who's earned a reputation as being a tireless, fierce, determined, effective advocate for Narragansett Bay and the environment. But she did all that not just at Save the Bay, but throughout the watershed in her home community of Sharon, Massachusetts. She was a force to be reckoned with and a force of nature. When Allison passed away in 2003, her husband, Bill Aikenhead, established an award in her honor. And the award was really about this determined advocacy of one individual and the difference it can make. Mike Woods is the volunteer chairman of the Rhode Island chapter of the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers organization, a national group whose mission is to ensure North America's outdoor heritage and hunting and fishing in a natural setting through education and work on behalf of wild public lands, waters, and wildlife. And about, I'm going to say 6 or so years ago, Mike reached out to us, and he introduced himself and he said, "I want to come talk to you and see where, so we, our organizations, can work together, what we have in common, and just start working together." Since that first meeting, Mike has earned the deepest respect and admiration of Save the Bay, our staff, the whole organization, for incredibly dedicated, effective volunteer advocacy on issues of great importance to Narragansett Bay and to the entire watershed, really. Those issues include shoreline access, environmental enforcement, environmental agency budgets, Coastal Resources Management Council reform, Menhaden conservation, and much, much more. Mike's also a great believer and practitioner in advocacy based on science and data and facts, and that's really important. Over the years, I'm going to guess, Mike, you've probably logged thousands of hours of volunteer time. He does not get paid for the stuff that he does. often late at night because we know it because we've been with him at legislative hearings and regulatory hearings and strategy sessions with fellow advocates, be it on weekends or at nights. We've had many a long phone call and meeting conversation just to make sure that we are advancing our common missions. Just like Allison Walsh, Mike has thrown himself fully into protecting and restoring our natural resources. His advocacy for shoreline access, including and especially his leadership in winning passage of the 2023 Shoreline Access Award, is historically great. It's a great example of how a determined individual can have a real impact on Narragansett Bay. And like Allison, Mike is a relentless, accomplished advocate for the Bay and the environment. So Mike, we are very, very happy to give you the Allison J. Walsh Award for Outstanding Environmental Advocacy. Come on up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to say just a couple words here, and then Topher shared a little bit of the history that I've had with Save the Bay. I haven't been around advocacy for that long, and Topher's right. When I first got into it, I reached out to Save the Bay, and the reason I did that, and I've learned even more about this through the time that I've been at the State House, at the agencies, is that the work that this organization does is in protection of our biggest public land playground that we have here in the state of Rhode Island, and that is Narragansett Bay. And whether you hunt or fish like I do, or clam, or walk on the beach, watch birds, or just enjoy the natural world around us, the work Save the Bay does, and I like to think that the work Backcountry Hunters and Anglers does, is in support of that. So thank you, I am humbled. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Next, our Director of Advocacy, Jed Thorpe, will present the Environmental Achievement Award.
Hey everybody. Short people hate podiums, by the way. All my short friends out there know what I'm talking about. It is my pleasure to present the 2025 Award for Environmental Achievement to Steve Silva. For 3 decades, environmental engineer Steve Silva managed a wide range of programs for US EPA's New England region, including wastewater permitting, estuaries and water quality, and water compliance and water quality standards. Save the Bay's staff can attest to Steve's history and reputation of putting the health of estuaries, including Narragansett Bay, first. Since retiring from EPA in 2013, Steve has applied his knowledge, skills, and passion for clean water as a volunteer with the Taunton River Watershed Alliance and became a driving force in the growth of their water quality monitoring program. Under Steve's leadership, more than 30 volunteers sample and test the Taunton River, its tributaries, and Mount Hope Bay for bacteria, nitrates, phosphorus, and temperature. Steve also gives his volunteers and watershed supporters important context for what those water quality numbers mean. For example, Steve will interpret the previous month's sampling data and include useful context, such as how much water was flowing the day that samples were taken, if there were rainstorms in the days before, and how much stormwater may have influenced the bacteria counts, and his general opinion as to whether or not the river is doing okay, and if not, where the hot spots might be. Perhaps most importantly, Steve and the Taunton River Watershed Alliance have used their data to advocate for wastewater permits that are more protective of the Taunton River watershed, including some recent reductions in nitrogen limits implemented by EPA. Steve is a wealth of knowledge about wastewater treatment plant permits. He keeps watershed advocates well informed of water quality issues, and he is incredibly generous and patient with his time. If our advocacy team has a question about a permit in the mass portion of our watershed, we call Steve. In recognizing Steve Silva with the 2025 Environmental Achievement Award, Save the Bay also expresses our great appreciation to the Taunton River Watershed Alliance for its decades of effective advocacy for the Taunton River and Mount Hope Bay watersheds. Steve, thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing, and all that we know that you will do. Congratulations.
one thing about the Taunton River Watershed Alliance is we're mostly all volunteer group. We've got one part-time paid person. But we can accomplish what we can accomplish through partnerships. And one of the great partnerships we have is with Save the Bay. And so I thank you for that. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
My
Thank you.
Our next award is the Volunteer of the Year award to be presented by our volunteer and internship manager, July Lewis.
Good evening, everyone. Save the Bay, as you know, has thousands of volunteers who participate with us every year, and they are all very deeply appreciated. And our annual Volunteer of the Year award is an opportunity to celebrate volunteers who truly go above and beyond. And this year, it is my great pleasure to honor Alicia Sadowski. Alicia is a truly remarkable person. She has a PhD in biochemistry from Penn State, master's in public health epidemiology from Columbia University, master's in business administration from UConn. She's an avid runner. She's a retired health economist, and she now devotes her time and her boundless energy to causes that align with her interests. She volunteers for Westerly Land Trust, the Westerly Rotary. She's a tax preparer for AARP. She's a URI Master Gardener, and she is a park associate at Westerly's beautiful Wilcox Park. And that is just what she does with other organizations, and I'm sure there's more. So for Save the Bay, while some volunteers gravitate towards one role or another, Alicia does it all. Habitat restoration. She got her start with us in 2017 by joining our Ninigret salt marsh planting and restoration. The swim. She has become a lead volunteer for our swim, the parking team in Jamestown. Everybody ever parked in Jamestown? At the boatyard, it's not easy to direct volunteers there. There's no straight lines. There's boats everywhere. She really rose to the challenge, and she, figured it out. Got a great system. Now she's a terrific leader with the other volunteers there, making that job so much easier for them. So storm drain marking in Westerly, marking drains with markers that say don't dump drains to coast. We do a ton of these projects. We do them everywhere. But when Alicia is on the job, man, does it get done quickly. A project I think is going to take all summer. I turn around, it's a week or two later, like just the other day. I'm like, you're done? You did all of them? They're done. She's incredible. She really, really makes it, she just does great work out there. And let's see, shoreline cleanups. Back in 2021, and she had started to get involved in shoreline cleanups, and she approached me to say, hey, I'd like to do more, but there's not more on the South Coast where she's so fond of doing her work. And I said, well, gosh, I'd love to. I could use some more leaders. Any interest in being a leader down there? And Alicia said, well, I don't know, because I don't want to be sitting at a check-in table. I want to be doing stuff, and that is just like her. And I promised her that if she became a leader, I would partner her up with someone else, that they could work on it together, and she would always have a chance to always be moving during that cleanup. And so she took me up on it, became a leader, and since then she's been our most frequent and dedicated leader on the South Coast, doing regular cleanups at Quaney Breachway in Charlestown and Weekapaug Breachway in Westerly with fellow leader Victoria Quill. And you can join her this Saturday at 8 a.m. at Quaney Breachway. She would love to see you out there. Finally, water quality monitoring. This is really the kind of the most special thing that she does, because it's like there's cleanup, there's volunteer opportunities that anybody can sign up for. We have a lot of people, and then there's really specialized opportunities where we find that one special person who's going to be a really good fit, and she is amazing. She's a regular volunteer with Dr. Katie Alves, our South Coast keeper, on the water quality monitoring in Little Narragansett Bay. And she's always eager to learn and to collaborate. She's faster than anyone else with processing water samples for chlorophyll. And she is just a joy to work with, and just a solid rock star making that program happen. Alicia is so generous with her time and talent that she's an incredible asset to our team in everything that she does. We are truly grateful to her for her outstanding energy, her leadership, and her dedication to Save the Bay's mission on the South Coast and beyond. So please join me in congratulating Alicia on being named Save the Bay's Volunteer of the Year.
Number one, she's an awesome person. That's half the reason I even do this. But a few things. Just one, I love the outdoors. Two, I love conservation. And since I've come to Rhode Island, I can't imagine being anywhere else but with Save the Bay. So this is kind of my home for the rest of my life, as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome.
The last set of awards are our education awards, and those will be presented by our Director of Education, Bridget Prescott.
Hi everyone. I forgot my glasses, but it's good that I made such large font. You can probably see it from outer space. So I'm honored to present our education awards tonight. These awards recognize the outstanding work and commitment that educators and students across our watershed do every day to make Narragansett Bay a difference in Narragansett Bay. Our awardees tonight embody Save the Bay's educational vision of inspiring the next generation of Bay stewards. Our first award goes to someone who is a natural educator, has a deep love for Narragansett Bay, fish, boats, and Save the Bay. Though he is the current VP or Vice President of Bristol Marine, he is a past Save the Bay educator, captain, as well as one of our first Bay Camp directors. He broke our hearts when he moved on, but we know that his heart has always been part of Save the Bay, kept Save the Bay close. Joe has been volunteering his personal boat and his captaining skills every year at our swim, even when he and his wife Sarah had newborns at home. So thank you, Sarah, for lending your husband to us on those early mornings. Most notably, he has created a unique experience for high school career and tech programs who offer a course of study in the marine trades. Joe has created connections between these high schools, Bristol Marine, and our education program here at Save the Bay. He's helping support the teachers in bringing the concepts of the classroom to life in the boatyard. And we have really benefited that because he usually asks Save the Bay to use one of our education boats. These students walk away with hands-on experiences of what it means to haul out a boat, pressure wash the hull, service out drives, as well as the inner workings of a boat engine. Students are learning about real life and learning about life in and around the bay and are introduced to marine-related career paths that nurture a deep love and respect for our bay. Joe has carved a niche for the future of marine trades in our state. He is an accomplished mariner and a well-respected in the Rhode Island and Massachusetts boating community. We couldn't be luckier to have him as a Save the Bayer forever. Please join me in congratulating Joe Mariani as Save the Bay's Educator of the Year.
First, I just want to say that when I did work here, I'm pretty sure I promised Maureen that I would never speak in public without letting her vet what I was going to say first. I'm going to do my best to be appropriate and be professional. I just want to say this is the most fun group of people I ever had a chance to work with. And although my professional career went in a different direction, I'm not terribly good at knowing when to leave a party or take hints. So I've just kept showing up and getting in the way on boats and going into the back of the office like I belong there. And this is only going to embolden that poor behavior. So thank you. And on behalf of myself and Bristol Marine, we're very excited for the programs we're going to continue to create together.
Thank you. Okay. All right, well, our second award goes to a young woman who might be in the traffic on the way up north, who has been exploring her passion for science throughout her high school years. She loves the natural sciences, and her high school career has led her to take classes at CCRI and Salve Regina in those subjects. Her passion has since developed into science communication, which led her to intern in the education program, intern as an educator at our aquarium, where she can develop her skills as an educator, who is being mentored by one of our education specialists. Georgia has given wonderful experiences to aquarium guests, educating them about the ecological value of Narragansett Bay, its animals, habitats, and some of the challenges our bay faces, including climate change. She created her school's first science club, and her senior project focused on the importance of science communication. She's been bringing the knowledge and experience she gained at Save the Bay back to her school community and science club. We're very excited to see what this passionate and talented young lady does in the future. Please join me in congratulating Georgia Hecking as our Bay Student of the Year.
I'll next invite, again, Topher Hamblett back up to the podium for some remarks as our Executive Director.
Hello again. Save the Bay was founded on the premise that a passionate, well-organized group of people can help Narragansett Bay recover from a century of pollution and neglect, fend off present and future challenges, and ensure that this bay is a bay for everyone. And 55 years in, we're doing all these things and more to protect and improve Narragansett Bay. In the past year, we've had a lot of exciting accomplishments. I can't share them all, but I do want to share a few highlights. And these accomplishments are done by everyone in this room, including the people that we are honoring here tonight. We celebrated a river and marsh restoration project more than a decade in the making on the Kickamuit River, made possible by the removal of 2 obsolete dams. This was one of many, many restoration projects going on in the bay in the South Coast. We replaced undersized road culverts that choke rivers and streams with larger culverts that allow water to flow freely. By right-sizing culverts and by removing dams, we are in effect unclogging the arteries of the bay and improving its health. In 7 coastal communities, we restored dunes and dunegrass habitat that were damaged by a series of winter storms. To improve water quality, as was mentioned before, we work with the Taunton River Watershed Alliance to advocate for permits to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus to help improve the water quality of the Taunton River. We held the Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council accountable for following its own rules while continuing the campaign to reform its outdated structure. We will persist and we will get there. We carried on the fight for access for everyone to the shores and riverbanks of Narragansett Bay, from Providence and Pawtucket to the South Shore. And we provided high-quality marine science education to over 11,000 students and connected another 4,000 people to Narragansett Bay through our Seal Watch programs, lighthouse tours, and nature cruises. Before I note another accomplishment or two, I want to extend my deep appreciation to our hardworking, passionate, phenomenal staff who day in, day out, carry on and carry out the work of this organization. So all of you staff, please stand up and be counted and saluted. Please. Our staff works in advocacy, restoration, education, communications, and what we call here operations, a catch-all term, which really means the important work of fundraising, membership, running and upgrading our facilities, and recruiting volunteers and interns. And speaking of volunteers, this organization was founded by and depends on a strong volunteer corps built over generations who share a passion for Narragansett Bay and a commitment to its well-being. I'm going to repeat what Bud said. Last year, a record 3,976 individuals gave a record total of 24,882 hours in support of our mission. Let's hear it again for our volunteers. Yeah. Now, I also want to recognize an extraordinary group of volunteers, our board of directors and committee members who generously give their time, energy, and expertise to govern, guide, and grow Save the Bay. So here, let's hear it for our board and our committee members too. You know, a few minutes ago, George remarked on how Save the Bay rolls up its sleeves and gets its hands dirty, while also focusing on the future. Here we are at the Bay Center. 20 years ago, Save the Bay moved here from our rented headquarters in an old bank building on Smith Street. The hard work of planning, fundraising, site preparation, construction, and moving in here followed an all-important first step, and that was the board, staff, and friends of the organization reflecting on who the organization is, can be, and must be to carry out our mission. Through visioning and by design, the Bay Center made Narragansett Bay a more accessible place for the community, and I think Save the Bay itself a more accessible organization for the community. Recognizing the importance of building generations of Bay Savers, we built a platform for growth, and it's been transformational. Let's just appreciate that for a minute. Think about what happens here. Every year, thousands of students come here and connect with the Bay through our marine science education programs in these classrooms, in this building, in the salt marsh that we planted, and on the vessels here down at our docks. For many, it's their first time on the Bay. Some have become volunteers, and even a few have become members of our education staff. That was the vision. We convene meetings of advocates, community groups, decision makers, scientists on the most pressing needs facing Narragansett Bay. We hold press conferences here and do media interviews here and celebrate our successes here. That was the vision. On any given day, dozens of people use the pier, the docks, the shoreline for fishing, to harvest blue crabs, to go for walks, enjoy a picnic, or simply get some peace and solace through their connection with Narragansett Bay. But the Bay Center this place is by design a gateway to the Bay for everyone, and that too was the vision. And now 20 years later, we celebrate another transformation. In March, we mark the 1-year anniversary of opening the doors of Save the Bay's Hamilton Family Aquarium in Newport to the public. You've heard the expression, if you build it, they will come. If you build it really well and run it really well, they will come in droves. In our first year, we welcomed almost 75,000 people into the aquarium. Yes, please. And that too, it's an aquarium for everyone. In the first year, 2,390 active duty military and veterans were welcomed with free admission, along with 1,529 visitors through the Museums for All program. Most important, though, is that so many visitors discovered Narragansett Bay for the first time or rediscovered it through their aquarium experience. Like the Bay Center, the aquarium was visioned and designed to support our mission by inspiring a deeper connection to Narragansett Bay. It will, of course, take resources to sustain this aquarium for the decades to come, and that's why we made the decision to build an aquarium reserve fund for maintenance, repairs, and improvements that will be needed over time. 11 months ago, a generous donor who was inspired by our vision for the aquarium offered to match $332,000 of the reserve fund money that we raised, but we have to raise it all first. Today, we are within $15,400 of hitting that mark. We're getting close. Let's get there soon. I believe that Save the Bay's future depends in part on our ability and our commitment to expand and strengthen our people power. Connecting and engaging more people in more places with more effective programs is essential to our success. We're building towards that now and not a moment too soon. And George talked about the big issues, the long-term issues facing the Bay. We have a big one right now. It's going to become even more significant in the future, and that's protecting the Bay's shoreline, its ecological value, and its access to it for the public, for everyone. The shorelines of the Bay has always been in a state of flux, ever changed by winds and tides and currents and storms. Some shorelines erode while others build up with sand and rocks. It's been happening for thousands of years. It's pretty cool. But stretches of the Bay shoreline have been altered by or lost to development over the years. Think about the roads and bridges that run through and over Narragansett Bay's salt marshes, the nurseries of life that sustain Narragansett Bay. For 20 plus years, our habitat restoration team has been at work undoing that damage by protecting and restoring salt marshes along the bay and the coast. But with climate change, the most profound of all human impacts on the bay, the pace of change, and especially of coastal erosion, is accelerating. So is the pace at which those same stretches of shoreline are being armored with giant rocks and walls by home and business owners trying to protect their shoreline property from erosion. This very human instinct to protect property from the encroaching sea is understandable, but hardwalling the shore to prevent or delay erosion has two major consequences. The first is the loss of natural shorelines and habitats that are so important to the bay's health. The second is the cutting off of public access to and along the shoreline, access that has been enjoyed by the bay's human inhabitants for thousands of years and protected by Rhode Island's Constitution. This is happening fast. And while we cannot reverse climate change today, we can actually do something to protect stretches of the bay's shoreline. This is challenging today, and it will be more challenging in the years and decades ahead. Making it even more challenging is the cold fact that Rhode Island's coastal agency, the Coastal Resources Management Council, lacks the resources it needs to plan, regulate, and enforce the rules that are supposed to protect the bay's natural shoreline and allow it to do what it normally does, allow it to change per nature. CRMC also needs to be modernized and pulled from the dark ages of Rhode Island politics, in which politically connected players get their way and are allowed or even encouraged to armor their piece of the shoreline at the expense of the bay and everyone else. As the voice of Narragansett Bay, we can and we must do everything in our power to preserve and even where possible expand the natural shoreline for the health of the bay, for the life it supports, and for the people who depend on it. Save the Bay's staff, board, and program and policy committee are sharpening our focus on this challenge. We are engaging scientists, lawyers, engineers, policy experts. We're developing a campaign to save our shorelines. We know this effort will depend on effective, sustained communications, and of course, the activism of our members, of you, all of us. At the heart of this lies a question. What kind of bay will we leave for the next generation and ones that follow it? Will the bay become a rock and concrete lined bathtub? Or will it be the thriving, healthy, fishable, swimmable bay accessible to all that we strive for? It is definitely up to us. At this annual meeting of 2025, we're reaffirming our commitment to protect and improve Narragansett Bay, to save its shorelines for the bay itself and for the people. Today, we celebrate a year of great accomplishments and 55 years of impactful advocacy for the bay. Tomorrow, we will roll up our sleeves and get back to work, inspired by our mission and by each other. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you, everyone involved in this great organization. Let's keep going. Let's step up our efforts. The future is exciting, and I think we are up for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Topher. That was inspiring. I'm going to give all of you an intellectual gift just before we part, which is I'm not so good at counting. There might be 100 people in this room. There are 400 people signed up to come to Taste of the Bay outside that we're all waiting for. So my intellectual gift to you is get to the food that you want quickly. Beat the others to it. That's what you get for coming to the annual meeting in advance. And with that piece of advice, I can now officially adjourn the 55th annual meeting of Save the Bay.